If you're ready to invest long-term in real estate, one of the things that you're going to have to perfect and get really used to doing is due diligence. Due diligence, which would go deeper than the norm, which would be more holistic, which would be more detailed, and which would be more encompassing. My name is Leslie Kenna Okoro, and I'm a realtor based in Lagos, Nigeria. I help income earners like yourself to leverage and take advantage of real estate and as an investment tool that they can use to create the wealth portfolios that they need and they desire. Today, I'm going to be breaking down all the unspoken details about due diligence that you as an investor should know and you should be really eager to start doing for yourself. Due diligence is not just a fluff statement where you say it and then you don't necessarily do it. If you're doing that and you have been investing, chances are that some of your properties are going to be at risk and you need to be able to start securing them. But before we go into how it is that you can start to secure properties that you've already acquired and you probably didn't do enough due diligence on, let's talk about properties that you have not acquired or you're just about to acquire, and how it is that you can use due diligence to ensure that you are fully secure or way more secure than you normally would have been. The common presumption when everybody talks about due diligence is go and check the title, go and look for who owns it or who owned it and who it is that's trying to sell it to you. And a lot of times the due diligence checks just stop there. Yes, you're correct in the sense that those are things that you need to check for, but have you ever thought about checking who owns the property before the person who is selling it to you actually owned it? Have you thought about checking on that person? Have you tried to check the history of that property in terms of were there any court cases, were there any allegations, were there any claims against that property that were left unattended and then were just passed from one person to the other, and then this person has probably found out about them and he or she also wants to just, neglect them and pass them on and get out of the entire equation? Have you thought about that? Now, this is not to cast aspersions on every single person who's selling their property in Lagos or wherever it is they're going to be buying property for, maybe in Nigeria or anything. However, it is a known fact that the onus is on you who is buying to ensure that you are buying the best and the most secure asset for yourself. So if you do not put on your doubting Thomas cap and make sure that you are going to check all of those things on all of those details, then chances are that you are probably going to be setting yourself up in the future for something or some incident or some experience that is not going to be palatable. Let's take, for example, the properties that were demolished recently, and people were crying out to say that, that something should and could have been done and all of that. For me, my opinion is what should have been done. There were a number of things that could have been done, but did the people who were invested there, did they know what the things or what the process for acquiring those properties were when at the time that they were buying them? There were a lot of red flags, like a gas line. Like, why would you build on, around, or near a gas line? Like, that is just an accident waiting to happen. But let's not dwell so much on what was done because we're not going to be into that. But just on the peripheral, there were just those things that were red flags. And I'm mentioning them today because I want you, as you watch this video, to also know that sometimes your due diligence is as simple as looking in the environment for what is and what is not. Another thing that you should be looking out for would be high tension wires. If the property that you're trying to buy is directly under high tension wires, like where high tension wires go across the house or something across the house, then please stay away. Because there is a law in Lagos, Nigeria, basically, that prohibits property to be located under a high tension wire. Those areas are meant to be roads. So if there's a property that you are considering buying, then please, just do your checks properly. Get a lawyer onto it to do your checks. And I'm saying a lawyer because property lawyers are well versed in details of what is and what should not be in terms of property and where it should be and how it should work. Number 2, you want to check on who owned the property, the history of the property. So it's not just about who selling it to you, but then who sold it to the person who is selling it to you, or how did the person who is selling it to you acquire it. There may be something not so kosher in how that person probably got the property, or how it is that the person is now trying to dispose of it. And I say the word may, so please let's hold on to the word may. There may be something not so kosher in that, but again, the onus is on you to find out. So look into that, dig into that, find out what it is, and ensure that all the T's were crossed, all the I's were dotted for even that person, so that you are now not inheriting something that you should really not be inheriting. Yes, there are things that can be fixed. The details, there are instances, there are situations that can be fixed and all of that. But the question then becomes, do you want to have to go and do those things? I mean, it's one thing if there is full disclosure that, oh, this is why it is that I'm selling. This is something that you're going to have to look into, or something that you're going to have to fix. And these are all the paperwork and these are all the details that you will need to be able to do that. And then it becomes your choice. But when it's not disclosed, then chances are that it is going to be way more than what it looks like on the surface. So at that point in time, once you find something, just check again for what it is it's going to take to be able to fix it, or to correct it, or to formalize it in a way that it doesn't become a problem to you, and then make a decision. I always tell my clients, let's not be afraid, or let's not hesitate to walk away from a deal that is not aligning. Because when it doesn't align today, it's only going to keep getting deeper and worse, and the alignments only can keep getting, pulling apart over the years, and then it will just become a dearth or something that it is that you should just be saying, I wish I had let it go at that point. So let's do the I wishes now by just simply walking away. Point number 3 would be the family that is selling it to you. Did they do everything that was required to formalize that property? Now, we all know that there's a lot of history in how lands are owned in Nigeria and Lagos, penultimately. And some of it comes from cultural laws where families own lands. But over the years, because the state has grown, and because the state has needed for its town plan to be modified over the period, I mean, some lands and some properties had to be remapped or had to be repurposed from what they were initially meant for into something else. Now, some families may not necessarily have, transferred all of that information down to their descendants, where now you now have the child of somebody who is trying to dispose of a property that he probably found the papers in his father's will or his father's belongings, and then he says, oh, I want to sell this property. And because he sees the paperwork, he or she sees the paperwork, and they're saying, okay, so I have this land and I can sell it. And then you, as somebody who doesn't know it's in a good area and all of that, you just go and again acquire it. What do you do in times like that? When you want to buy land, anywhere it is, developed areas, growing areas, undeveloped areas, virgin areas, be what it may, have a surveyor. Get to the surveyor's office and get a representative from there to come and actually chart the pins of that property and let them verify that that property is free from remapping or acquisition in any way, shape. I say this because there was an instance where a colleague of mine had gone to the surveyor's office to get them to come to the site to come and map it out. And when the mapping was done, the report came out and they were told that they were going to lose like a third of the land. And then the question then became, why are we going to lose a third of the land? Because the road had been widened to eat into some of the lands that were in that area. And for that purpose, there had been a communique which required for people who own properties in those areas to come forward and deliberate on whether they wanted to stay there or they didn't want to stay. So you don't want to be caught in those kind of issues where you are thinking that you're buying a certain expanse of land and then you find out what it is that you're going to be able to use legally is actually way smaller about what it is, because you will feel cheated and you will feel like, oh, they took a part of my land. They didn't take a part of my land. That land wasn't yours because it wasn't yours to acquire in the first place. So that's another way that it is that you should be doing your due diligence. And last but not least is the title. Registered survey is not a title. It is a status for what's your land, what stage the documentation process that your land is at. A lot of us, I say us because at some point in time, I also had that misconception that registered survey was a title. Now, it's not a title. It's just a status for what stage of the property is. And technically, it's one of the first stages that, okay, you are at least accepted that you want to go through this. So that shows that, yes, that there is some level of intent. However, if you are going to take that land and then you do not do anything else to it, chances are that you're going to lose it if some form of reclamation or remapping should come along, and you will have no means for recourse. Now, I say you will have no means for recourse because there are things that you can do when a land or an expanse of area is going to be reclaimed by the government. And that means that you are either going to be eligible to be settled in cash, if you can come to an agreement on how much, or you are going to be relocated. Example, there are, where the Fourth Mainland Bridge is currently mapped to be, there are already some houses, dwellings, settlements along that line. And the plan right now is that a lot of those residents that are going to be affected would need to be resettled, because it's no fault of theirs that they bought land that they were given the rights to buy in the time when they did. But right now, that land is needed to be able to build the Fourth Mainland Bridge. Now, you may say, oh, but why don't they take the Fourth Mainland Bridge somewhere else? That's a technicality that's not up to me, and I don't want to have to go into. However, after all is said and done, and that's where they've decided that the Fourth Mainland Bridge needs to be maybe for connectivity or for viability or whatever it is, then it means that people that are going to be affected needs to be resettled. If you are one of them, the first thing that's going to happen is that you're going to have to show that you legally and officially own the rights to that land. Because look at it this way. If you do not own the rights to that land, then the government is going to say that that means that you were not meant to be there. So when we talk about title of properties, then it is something that we have to take a whole lot more seriously, in the sense that you have to ensure that one, the title can be transferred to your name. And if it cannot be transferred to your name, that the name of the person that it is currently is at least done properly in such a manner that if you ever need to tender it, that at the very worst, you will be having to go to that person to get a signature that confirms that yes, they are available to, verify that that's what should be, that is what it is. And you would then be able to say, yes, that you can be legally settled. You will have the rights to fight for whatever it is that you want to be, or need to be able to fight for. So there we have my main strategies or steps for how due diligence should be done. Now remember, I'm a realtor. Everything I've spoken about is literally just the high-level topics and high-level headers, rather, for what it is that needs to be done. The actions that are going to have to go on underneath each of those headers may vary, may change, some may be just linear, some may have little babies, some may have rows, some may have columns that have to go down in terms of what it is that needs to be done. But please, please, and please, always make sure that to the best of your ability, you are able to do all of these checks and balances to ensure that when it is that you are buying real estate, you are actually buying it legally, you're buying a property that is legal to be transferred to you in terms of ownership, and that you will be able to keep not only for yourself, but also in your life. My name is Larasuli Kenna, and this has been another episode where we talk about how it is that you can invest safely, viably, and successfully in real estate. Until next time, adios.